U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened to deploy troops to Baltimore, escalating a clash with Maryland Governor Westmore after the Democrat invited him to join a safety work in the city. Trump wrote on social media that if Westmore needs help, like Gavin Newsom did in LA, I'll send in the troops, which is being done in nearby D.C., and quickly clean up the crime. Well, his comments mark the latest flashpoint in the president's efforts to deploy National Guard troops to Democratic-led cities as part of what he calls a crackdown on crime. While the use of military personnel for domestic law enforcement has drawn fierce backlash from Democrats, one governor described it as an abuse of power. Well, on Sunday, the Guard started to carry weapons in Washington. The military said previously that weapons were available if needed, but kept in the armory.
Everybody wants to save D.C. In one way, it's the easiest. The violence was more than any other city in the country, actually, by far. It may have been more than any other city in the world. If you could think, we looked at some of the worst cities in the world, it was worse. And that's why it angers me to see the mayor saying about how they have it on the slide. Not on the slide, it was worse than ever. We have no problem getting that money. That money will come out of Congress. I think it'll be even bipartisan. I mean, I would imagine Democrats would vote for that one. When we're ready, we'll go in and we'll straighten out Chicago, just like we did D.C. Chicago is very dangerous, great place. I built great stuff there. I have the most beautiful building in Chicago, I think. But I hate to see what's happened to Chicago.
Well, Trump threatens to deploy troops. I just took that story. The Texas Senate has approved a bill to redraw the state's congressional maps at the behest of President Donald Trump in an effort to flip 5 U.S. House seats held by Democrats to Republicans. Well, the approval comes after the State House passed it on Wednesday. Well, the measure comes to Governor Greg Abbott, like Trump, a Republican, to be signed into law amid a nationwide redistricting battle. State Senator Carol Alvarado, a Democrat, said on social media on Friday that she planned to delay the measure by speaking continuously about it in the legislature, a move known as a filibuster. In 2021, Alvarado delayed passage of Texas district map by speaking for 15 hours on the go. Well, but a rare procedural motion by Senate Republicans just after midnight ended the debate and killed the filibuster, moving the chamber straight to the final vote. And to examine this development, I have joining me from California, Errol Morkoc, a spokesman for Republicans overseas. Glad to have you join me on The World, Errol.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, good. Why is Trump, that's the question on everyone's lips, why is Trump targeting Democrats, or democratic cities and states?
Well, that's not how we would characterize it. They're American cities, and there's certainly American cities full of American citizens, and primarily the reason the focus is on Democrat cities, beyond the obvious, right? We know that they're poorly run. We know that they're an incredible, financial boondoggle. They have terrible public school systems, terrible public transport, terrible, quality of life. We know all that. For the majority of people who are not very rich in these cities, that's their experience. But probably the reason that the target is going to what you've described as Democrat cities is because these are also what cities have had sanctuary policies. And so these are cities that have been overrun over the last, let's go with 10 years roughly, with many more people than the social system can handle. And the social system could already not function with the existing people there. So as you have 10 years of degradation of the social network and of the social systems in those cities, and you have the sanctuary city policies, which are blatantly illegal and against federal law, now you have a situation where the worst offenders, the places where the most danger is, that are not cooperative, are Democrat-run cities. Republican-run cities in places that are dangerous are open to any and all help they can get. It's the Democrat-run cities that are pushing back against safety, and that's why it's a news article today.
Well, contrary to your opinion, what I'm gathering or hearing in some quarters is that Trump is simply carrying out vengeance, if you like, you could call it that, against states that didn't vote for him during the election.
Well, we don't see that. In fact, I mean, if you look at Illinois, for example, where Chicago is, 43% of people in Illinois voted for Donald Trump. It's not against these cities. These are not against the cities. And that's such a weird characterization. When you have Chicago, let's take that. That's the 13-year leader of homicides in the United States. Congratulations, they reduced homicides this year. They're still the biggest offender, 573 homicides this year, 28,444 violent aggravated assaults. And all of these events are happening on the south side of Chicago. So that's affecting just one group of people. It's not affecting the mayor. It's not affecting the wealthy donors. It's affecting the people who live there. So we're not, the idea that we're attacking the city by trying to stop crime is completely counterintuitive to how we should be looking at this. What we're doing is we're assisting the American citizens who are in a situation that their lives have gotten to the point where this is the only step because their elected leadership refuses to protect them. And that's in the evidence of the numbers of their city.
Again, commentators are saying this is more of a show of force than any real intent at containing crime.
Well, a show of force would be the first step in deterrence. Absolutely. I think in DC, it is a big show of force, especially because it's such a small area. It's a district, and you're putting multiple agencies as well as military units in there. Of course, it's going to be more of a show of force. But that show of force, by the way, has led to no homicides for the first time in anybody's recent memory. I grew up an hour and a half south of DC. I don't remember the last time there was a week with no homicides in DC. Just doesn't happen. So, the idea is to show that force and make the people feel confident that you can arrive on a train from Philadelphia to DC and your daughter can arrive in that train at 10 p.m. at night and feel confident coming outside and getting a taxi. That's what that show of force is doing. And that's what we're getting feedback from residents on the ground who have seen the danger, who don't feel safe in those communities. And that show of force is going to lead to hopefully better policing and to eventually reducing crime across the board.
From figures I have seen, watched, the states say crime, in these states, crime has considerably reduced. So the necessity of sending guards, I'm talking about guard troops now, to take over state security ain't there really any longer.
It depends on what city you're referring to. And of course, you have to realize that a lot of these stats are adjusted. They're adjusted stats. They adjust felonies down. They adjust things down to make things look better. But simply, that's not the case. They can cook the books all they want. Go ask people who live in those cities if they're safer. They're not. In the end, the homicides are what really matter. So in DC, let's take, for example, they said they reduced crime by 30%. They removed homicide and violent assault from the category. So if you remove homicide and violent assault, yes, crime was down in DC. But if you keep those two things, which many citizens, normal people, really care about, then it's not down. So the fact of the matter is, yes, they can play games with statistics, but the people on the ground feel it, they see it, and the proof is in the pudding when you look at all the dead bodies at the end of the year in each one of these American cities. It's a war zone, and that's the problem.
Are they really playing with statistics or giving us real data? But that's, by the way, what are the psychological effects seeing guards, on the streets of the cities instead of where you should have the people who ordinarily should be on the street, the local police or the local security agencies manning those streets and trying to do their work.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We love seeing it. I'm glad you brought it up because the local police, they've been unable to respond, unable to handle the level of violence, the level of gunplay, the level of murder and assaults that have gone on. And you go talk to local police officers, the police officers unions, those are the ones who've been endorsing this the most, especially in DC. The police officers union has come out and said this is the best time ever we've had in fighting crime. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you to the federal government. And the people on the streets, they're able to use their train stations, they're able to use their metros, they're able to go outside and get a taxi or feel safe walking in areas where they weren't. It's only rich people who live in very segregated areas who do not have a violent experience. If you are middle class or below, your experience is incredibly dangerous compared to the people who are on television telling you how safe it is. And the reality of the matter is Donald Trump was elected by the working class in this country, and he's delivering that results and these kind of policies for the working class who specifically asked him, please go clean up our cities. We cannot use them. They are not safe public spaces anymore unless you are a rich person.
Errol, are you bothered that ab initio these National Guards weren't supposed to carry arms, but now they're allowed to carry arms, not just the shotguns, even the long ones? Why carry arms?
Yeah, because in America, the citizens have arms. So, I mean, my friends and I have long guns. All of us have guns, AR-15s, AK-47s, many weapons. So those weapons are sold in the store right down the street from me. So the idea that the government is going to send people in there under equipped, I think became a problem. You don't want to have, U.S. servicemen and women go in there and then find themselves outgunned by gang members. And I think that was the fear, and that fear would have been, unconscionable to imagine that situation. So very quickly they had to match the potential armament of the U.S. citizens, which is at that level itself.
So what changed? Because initially they weren't supposed to. The arms were supposed to be somewhere if they needed it. So what changed?
I think just the common sense of it. Like I said, those kind of weapons are sold in the street from me. We can get in my car, drive 5 minutes. We can buy 10 long rifles, Kalashnikovs, whatever you want. It's legal. This is America. So I think they quickly realized, yes, optically it was a good idea in theory, but you're putting American soldiers at risk when they're going up against potential enemies who are going to be better equipped than they would if they did not have those kind of weapons. Because again, those weapons are sold to our citizens. So obviously the military decided that it was a miscalculation at first glance.
All right, Errol Morkoc, spokesman for Republicans overseas. Interesting to have you on The World. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, we have heard the side of the Republicans. Let's hear what the Democrats think. I have joining me from Chicago.